Welcome to the second talk on reality and three stories of creation and my own search for reality. Today we're going to talk about classical dualism. Now, what is classical dualism? Well, let me begin with a story from the Talmud. The Talmud talks about a man who goes to the next world and he's called to give an account for his sins, and the body of the man says, "It's not my fault, I was just lying there, it's the soul's fault." The soul animated me, and the soul said, "I just could fly away, it's the body's fault." The angel that was taking the testimony said, "Let me tell you both a story. One time there was a lame man unable to walk and a blind man unable to see, and somehow they got together. The blind man let the lame man crawl on his back, and they snuck in and stole some figs. And afterwards, when they were caught, the blind man said, 'I couldn't have stolen the figs, I can't see.' And the lame man said, 'I couldn't have stolen the figs, I cannot walk.' And the master said, 'You got together and you stole them.' And so it is with the body and the soul. You may be separate, but you got together and you did the sins together." That's a story out of the Talmud that explains a classical Jewish Christian idea. It's actually a Platonic idea that goes back to Plato, that we have two parts. We have a body, we have a soul. We're made up of matter, we're made up of mind, and they are two very different things. How do they interplay with one another? How do they affect one another? That's going to be one of the big questions we'll have to solve. But to talk about the body and the soul, I want to first turn to a translation or interpretation of the first line of Genesis. It's the one you're all familiar with. "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." That's the King James translation, and most other English versions use that particular translation. But notice it talks about an all-powerful God really creating from nothing a heaven and an earth. And that all-powerful God, if he created everything, both the body and the soul, then that all-powerful God is also able to get that body and the soul to work together. One of the great philosophers of the early modern period of philosophy was a fellow named Leibniz. And Leibniz was trying to solve the body-soul problem, and he actually used the phrase pre-established harmony. Somehow God, if God is all-powerful, gets the body and the soul, these two very, very separate things, to work together. So the classic view of religion, whether it be Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, the classic view of at least the Western religions is what we often call Theism. It's based on this dualistic idea. There is an all-powerful God. God made the body from nothing, from the dust of the earth. He made matter. God made the soul from the breath of God. God caused the body and the soul to come together, and so they're together until we die. And when we die, the body returns to the earth where it came from. The soul returns back to God. The universe was created from nothing. It's known as creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing. And God is all-powerful. Having said that, there are multiple problems with the idea that God is all-powerful, that God created everything from nothing, that God created a separate body and a soul. We're going to be dealing with some of these problems over the next few talks, but just to give a little bit away, if God puts souls into bodies, at what level does the soul come into a body? We humans have a soul. What about dogs? What about snakes? What about insects? How low down do you need to go to have a soul? And it's one great question. And if God created everything from nothing and God is all-powerful, couldn't God have done a better job creating a world? Why is there so much that just does not seem to work right in this world? Those are some of the themes we're going to be dealing with over the next several talks.